whether bears, mountain lions, or other darker creatures. The woods are the place that people banish uncivilized things to. While these things can't fight against groups of humans at once, they're more than able to prey on humans one at a time, especially children.
I learned the hard way. I learned all too well that people are still just animals, just like every other creature. We live, we get by, we can pass away at any second, and we don't all live to an old age. And most of all, sometimes we become food in the eyes of something else. I lived in Washington, in a small town that gets loads of rain year-round. But I was in paradise. We'd been living there for only a few months at the time, and I was in love with the place. We lived maybe 2 miles outside of the city, if you could call it that. Even still, as soon as you exit the city, forests and wilderness take over. I'm talking dense woods you could hardly walk through if you tried. Woods that were like a barrier, keeping you out, or keeping something inside. To be honest with you, I never really liked those woods. They didn't look like the picturesque forests of a national park. They looked more like an unnatural conglomerate. The trees' branches were bare in most places. The roads were always slick with rain or mist. And until I made it home from town, I tried to not look directly into the trees. I was maybe 7 years old at the time. I was often bored. There were no neighbors near our house. I had no friends from school. Usually, I'd play with my Game Boy Advance in my room, while the rain pattered against the glass windows from outside. But if my parents were gone, I'd go outside, splashing in the puddles, making a big ruckus, doing the things my parents would have gotten onto me for doing if they saw. One Saturday morning, my parents asked me if I wanted to go with them to the grocery store in town to pick up next week's groceries. They'd never asked me that before. It was usually, get in the car, it's time to go get groceries. So I was taken aback by the fact that they were giving me a choice this time. Of course, I said no. It was an opportunity to have an hour or two alone at home, to go play outside, play pretend, do what kids like to do. They said okay, told me to stay inside and keep the doors locked, then went on their way to town. I watched eagerly from the front windows as their car disappeared behind the trees at the bend in the road. The moment I could no longer see their car, I quickly threw on my rain boots and raincoat, and I ran outside. That day there was only a very light mist coming down, but the rain from yesterday had left behind some of the biggest puddles I've ever seen, some of which I swear went up nearly to my knees. I splashed around, soaking my new pants. I had no idea what kind of grounding I'd be getting into when my mom saw those pants later that weekend. But I was lost in the moment. No matter how much fun I was having, though, in the back of my mind, I was fully aware of how close the tree line was. I did not want to get too close. Something always felt off about those woods, as if there was someone in there keeping an all too close eye on me. I could feel it digging into me. Splash, splash, splash. Even at that young age, I was getting tuckered out. Jumping can take a lot out of you. Soon, I found myself sitting on the ground, panting with a smile on my face. It was so quiet out there. There was no wind, no cars or city noises, no birds or insects. I closed my eyes and took in the silence. Saw you. My eyes opened wide. It was a voice I recognized, but there was something wrong with it. It had said my name.
Sawyer, dear.
I turned in the direction of that noise. My heart seemed to stop when I looked straight into the dark forest.
You're not supposed to be outside, dear.
I understood now. It was my mother's voice, or it was supposed to be my mother's voice. It was monotone. It was filtered somehow, and it wasn't her.
Come here. Let me get the mud off your cheeks.
My mouth was open wide. I could feel my legs trembling even as I sat there on the ground. My hand, with a mind of its own, reached up to my cheek. There was, in fact, mud on my face. To my dismay, I found myself standing up and wanting to answer the call. Something about hearing a voice akin to my mother's. I wanted to listen to it. Whatever it was, whatever it wasn't. I stopped myself before I took the first step. What was I doing? Why would I ever answer to a voice like that? Instead, I took a step backwards.
Don't you dare!
The voice, it was angry now, and it no longer tried to mimic that familiar sound.
You listen to your mother.
I was petrified, frozen to that spot. I stared into the tree line, and then noises echoed from those woods. The sounds of branches and twigs snapping, giving way to something's weight as it moved forward. It lasted only a moment before it revealed itself. I couldn't stop the tears from coming. I expected one of many different things to show its face in those trees. What I didn't expect to see was my mother. I knew it wasn't her. Even if it had the same hair and the same complexion and the same eyes, I knew it wasn't her, because my mother's jaw wasn't unhinged. I turned and ran inside, listening for the sounds of footsteps behind me, footsteps breaking out of those woods. Yet I heard nothing but the sound of my small boots splashing through muddy puddles and the front door of my house swinging open as I ran inside. I locked the door behind me and I backed away. My eyes darted between each and every window, expecting to see that distorted face again at any moment, from anywhere. But there was nothing. After a long silence, I tiptoed to the nearest window and I looked out. I spotted the exact part of the tree line I had seen that thing. Nothing was there now but the still, cold woods. I locked every door and window I could find, and I shut myself in my room. I waited for my parents to get home, crying every second they were still gone. Soon, I heard their car pull up, heard my dad and mom talking, heard the front door open, but I still couldn't will myself to move from my spot. Eventually, my bedroom door opened. "Sweetie, we're home." It was my mother's voice, that sweet voice. It made me tremble. She peered around the opening door with a big smile on her face, and I screamed. She was visibly startled and confused. Her smile gave way to a frown. I had to convince myself that that was my mother, that this was the real one. Eventually, I was able to will myself up and embrace her. I never told her what happened. When she asked why I had screamed, I told her that she had just woke me from a dream. I wish it was just a dream. I stayed inside for the rest of my days at that house, only leaving to go to school or to load up in the car to go elsewhere. Otherwise, I would just stay in my room, try to ease my mind with video games, try to remember to keep the window blinds closed. One night, I forgot. One night I woke up, thirsty and ready for a glass of water. Before I could get out of bed, I saw the blinds I forgot to shut, and I saw the face of my mother against the glass, looking down at me, jaw unhinged and wide open.
Whoa boy, that was creepy. If you want to see more of the creepiest animated horror on YouTube, come visit me on my channel, Super Horror Show. The next family that moved into that house also noticed there was something weird in the woods and tried to find a lumberjack to move the tree line back. Only thing is, no one wanted to get near the trees. No one would take the job. Until one day, a man came by saying that he could do the job without getting near the trees. The man claimed he cut down a tree by staring at it. That's right. He sawed it with his own eyes!